Okay, here's my art assessment toolbox, updated version, and I decided to go with a lesson on Wayne Thiebaud because my students really like Wayne Thiebaud's colorful artwork. So I would begin the lesson by talking a little bit about the background of Wayne Thiebaud, how and where he lived. He still is alive today, lives in California. An interesting fact that he was a cartoon artist and worked for Walt Disney for a time. And then I would talk about, what did he paint? He liked to paint food objects or everyday objects, mainly still lifes, and mostly desserts is what he's the most famous for. And I got the picture off of the website in the red. And then I got the information from this slide off of the YouTube video because I also like to talk about some fun facts and then maybe show a video. Okay, so the main three objectives that I'm going to focus on, the students will gain understanding of Thiebaud's life by viewing a PowerPoint or a YouTube video. The students will gain understanding about the artist by listing, describing, comparing, contrasting, or explaining qualities of Thiebaud's work. And then the students will notice Thiebaud's work by viewing his artwork on the PowerPoint slides or watching a video in class. And then there's multiple forms of assessments to go with those objectives. And then the last one is that students will actually make a work of art that resembles Thiebaud's artwork by making a dessert still life. And then students will understand the difference between a landscape portrait and still life by a quiz. Okay, so I'm going to go over a couple vocabulary words. We're going to talk about repetition later on in the slide presentation. I'm going to explain impasto technique, which is a thick application of paint to the students before we start. And you can clearly see some impasto going on in his artwork, so we're going to talk about that. Is it still filming? Mm-hmm. And then we're going to go over variety, still life, landscape, portrait, which are on some other slides. Perspective, meaning like that the cake is being sliced out, so the cake slice looks like it's going back into the distance, and then how Wayne Thiebaud used outlining. All right, so this just goes over quickly what is a portrait. I listed kind of what I would say to the students, like a portrait is a painting of a person. And then I found the web definition just to cite the source. So this website definition is off of the Merriam-Webster online, and I listed the sources. And then same thing for all these slides, portrait, landscape, still life. I listed my own definition, what I would tell the students, and then I listed a web definition just to back up what I am saying. All right, so I'm still using kind of the same pre-assessment. I just typed it out differently in my own language. So the students would hold up a 1 if they didn't know a lot about an artist. They would hold up a 5 if they did know a lot about the artist. And then, you can sort of have a conversation about the artist based off what the students already know. So the students can be learning from their peers, which is nice. And then after that conversation, I would go right into playing the video or showing the slideshow presentation about Wayne Thiebaud. And then to draw another little piece of excitement, I actually did this in my last presentation, I like to show pictures of myself looking at the artwork to kind of draw in some attention and interest. And the students might ask questions like, wow, Miss Hess, why are you wearing shorts? Where is that? Why is he, I thought you said he painted desserts, but these are games and, a landscape. So it kind of gets a little bit more conversation going. So the first class activity that we would begin the lesson with would be looking at some pictures of Wayne Thiebaud's work. And then, from that information alone, Wayne Thiebaud, salad, sandwiches, and desserts, what kind of information can we gather by just looking at the title? And then students can work in small groups. They can list characteristics on a piece of lined paper, list commonalities that they see in Wayne Thiebaud's paintings, and just allow the students to kind of hear each other and have that conversation. Here's another activity. I gathered 4 pictures online from this Smithsonian website, and the students can talk about what these pictures, comparing and contrasting these pictures. Clearly they all have 4 subjects in each of the works, so that would be the first tier. That's just a little bit more of a simple, you know, answer. Okay, they all have 4 objects. Then the second tier, maybe the students might notice, okay, well there's 4 objects in each picture and they're all desserts. And then the third tier that would be a little bit harder would be, you know, the students started to talk about repetition, variety. The artist, oh wow, the artist has a very noticeable style throughout all 4 paintings. So that's some of the things that I would be looking for as I would pair students into small groups. Okay, class activity and discussion number 3, how does the artist use repetition? So that word is something that I want to come out of the lesson so I can use it later on in the year. So what, you know, we would notice what's going on in all of these pictures. Hopefully the students would say, you know, he's repeating the same subject over and over and over again in all 3 things. So this is a quality and a theme that Wayne Thiebaud uses. This is helping the students understand what he does. And then class activity number 4, what do you notice? So students could write down, and here's just some like sentence starters, choices made by the artist. What choices did he make? What kind of colors? What kind of forms did he use? What do you notice about the horizon line? What do you notice about the details? Okay, and then activity 5 is actually creating the artwork. So now we're getting down to the actual thing. All right, so I like to keep it kind of open-ended, letting the students choose and starting to say, you know, the gumball machine has the least amount of detail. Then we have the 1-layer tier cake, and then we have the 2-layer tiered cake for the 3rd tier. Okay, so then the tiers are labeled. And the students can choose their level of difficulty. All right, and then here's accommodations for activity number 5. So we've got tier 1 is the gumball machine, tier 2 is the level cake, and then tier 3 is the 2-level cake. And then I'm going to show you some of my class tracers here. So if the student needed help, I always try to encourage sketching it out, but if they needed help, they could put this on a sheet of paper and trace around the shape. Sometimes the students use it, sometimes they don't. Here's for the 1st layer cake. So that could just be by itself, and if they wanted to do the 3rd tier and they needed assistance, they could trace it like this. And I've used these for a few years. And sometimes the students want to use them, sometimes they want a challenge to not use them. And I also have a couple other resources here that I put out, just some vocab words that I just keep in my file, but I open it up and hang on the board. And then I've got my examples here that are also on the PowerPoint. Just wanted to show those off, to show where I got the pictures from. And then here's a student's example. And this one definitely looks like the student chose to trace. And I haven't really kept a lot of these examples. This is the only one I've kept. And I just handed back all the students' artwork, so I don't really have anything to show right now, but I do have a couple of pictures in the slideshow. All right, another accommodation if the student doesn't like drawing at all whatsoever, they could even pick to do model magic or clay. Now, sometimes I don't just let them choose. I try to encourage everyone to do the drawing and then everyone to do the clay or model magic, because if you take model magic out, chances are the students all want to do model magic and pretty much no one wants to draw. But if there was another teacher teaching us, that would be totally up to them, that lesson. All right, these pictures are pictures that I took off the internet and I put on my PowerPoint so that the students could kind of see what I was talking about with food. And I didn't even make them do desserts. They could have done any kind of food object. Oh. And these are some more pictures that I took off the internet. Here's the site, the source is below on Etsy. And I Googled clay food art for the kids and copied and pasted these images to give my students an idea and inspiration on what to make. So this is just helping them choose. just giving them some ideas. They don't always copy these, they can think of their own thing, but this is just giving the students some ideas. And then another accommodation for activity 5 is just a very step-by-step drawing poster of a cupcake. And then here is my students' actual food sculptures at the art show this year. So this would be an outcome of an activity of activity 5. And if you zoom in, you can see some of their little, we've got a little watermelon slice, a pizza slice, we've got a little breakfast plate over here, and it turned out really nicely. And I use a rubric to assess. I looked at some criteria here, how they use their pastels, did the student use perspective, so like that would be, you know, with the cake slice. Did the student show effort? Did the student include the horizon line in their artwork? And then their level of craftsmanship. So that would be a points from 5 to 3. All right, and then I put the tiered modalities in there just as a little helpful guide of what to remember when you're dealing with students with auditory, visual, or kinesthetic learning. And it just kind of lists some of the qualities. So I put that in there to keep in mind to use all of those things while you're adapting your lessons. You know, making sure the students can maybe repeat back to you, or they can write information down, or they can speak information to another student. So just keeping in mind all of those things, or acting out something that they learned. All right, so here's the assessment tool that I use for activities 1, 2, 3, and 4 in my lesson. Just a quick 3, 2, 1. I don't like to really quiz too hard the information on the artist because I want it to be fun. And this is just kind of making them recall information. Oh, what's 3 things you learned? Maybe 2 things you liked about the artist and 1 thing you would do differently, or 1 thing you would have a question about. And I pulled this resource from class, and I think that the resource was pulled online from class, and then I found another resource of 321 on this teachertoolkit.com because I didn't have the actual source for that picture on the class website. And then we've got a summative assessment. I created this slide specially for learners, for learners with special needs. So if they had a hard time reading the artist's name, they could actually match the picture with the picture. So we've got a picture of a little Keith Haring person. We've got a picture of a pop art person with a little caption bubble. We've got a cake picture, and then we've got Andy Warhol showing repetition. So Wayne Thiebaud, since he did food art, you could pair the dessert food art with the cake food art. And then maybe students without special needs could just match the picture with the correct answer. So here's just like a little bit of a example of what I would use. And then references, and that's it. Thanks.